Let's see. No housekeeping today, uh, except I have a couple of videos coming up on the music side of the channel where I'm going to dig into the setup I have on my piano downstairs, my ring modulation setup. So, for those of you who come for both the meditation and the music, keep an eye out for that. But I thought today I would talk about ignorance, right? So I often, particularly recently, have been talking about renunciation and the difference between wholesome and unwholesome, cultivating wholesome activities, wholesome mindset, wholesome that encourages and promotes the enlightened mind, right? And then unwholesome obscurations, things that prevent the realization of the nature of mind. And I know that all of these words, particularly renunciation, unwholesome, tend to get covered up with a bunch of ideas about judgment and sin, and ideas that really don't apply to the practice. And last night at the temple, Tempa Lama, my teacher, our teacher over at Omoling, started talking about the perfection of wisdom, and he started by talking about the three poisons of that are kind of at the root of our obscuration, right? Ignorance, desired attachment, and anger. And from combinations of those three come all of the various negative mindsets. And then he zeroed in on ignorance, and he put the teaching together in a way that really resonated. And I thought I would summarize now the what is ignorance? What do we mean when we say ignorance? Because we don't mean dullness or stupidity or the kinds of. Sorry, just realized I should check to see whether this was turned on. We don't mean the kinds of behavior that we, in colloquial term, mean when we say ignorant, dumb, stupid. We don't mean that. So what do we mean? Well, in the teachings and what Tempa clarified last night, and what I'm going to try to summarize today, because it brought together a lot of the processes I've been going through as I try to stabilize some of my basic practices. Right, the last couple of months, I've sort of set aside a lot of more complicated practices and have really been returning to the basics of posture, breath, intention, and so what is ignorance? It's one of the root causes of obscuration, and ignorance is the inability to recognize three crucial insights. And I think these three insights combined are really sort of one way of looking at it. I think, my interpretation is one way of looking at it is this is what makes you a Buddhist, is your recognition of these three ideas. Impermanence, interconnectedness, and karma. And ignorance is the unrealization, the unrecognition of those three aspects, right? So all conditioned phenomena lack inherent existence. They are impermanent. Whether that's a state of mind, pleasure, pain, a physical sensation, whether it's my body in its immediate form today, in its future form. These are all conditioned phenomena. This microphone, the cup of coffee that's behind me. This is, on one hand, this is very easy to verify. We can look and see that the garden in autumn is different from the garden in spring, different from the garden in summer. Seasons change, the days change. Where it becomes harder and where we are obscured is to actually exist in the understanding, not just the intellectual recognition, but the experienced, the lived experience of the impermanence of my body, of myself, my form, my feelings, right? My mental formations, all of those leading up to consciousness. Everything is conditioned. And the recognition of that conditioning is the wisdom of the path, and the inability to recognize that is one of the forms of ignorance that obscures our ability to live with authenticity, to live with compassion, to live and progress towards the aspiration of enlightenment. So then, impermanence. Then the second is interconnectedness. And I think they're kind of the same, right? If I'm a passing phenomena, and you are too, where does that sense of you and I really reside? And I think this is a teaching that can extend, in one sense, our sort of environmental awareness is part of this. Our ability to recognize that we have an impact on the world around us that extends beyond our immediate actions. Our ability to recognize that the dialogue that we're having is made up of two parts, and those parts are interconnected. The interconnectedness, it's a hard word to say, interconnectedness of consciousness, the interconnectedness of arising phenomena. The microphone that is in front of me, which is impermanent, is also connected to the fact of this moment. The dog's running around, shaking the camera a little bit. Interconnectedness. Again, very simple to state, very simple to understand intellectually, but to live with the full experience of that, the meaningfulness of that experience, the true realization of that is wisdom, and the inability to do that is ignorance. And from that ignorance, from the lack of recognition of interconnectedness, comes all cruelty, comes all negative actions. How can you behave other than with compassion if you have recognized interconnection? And then third, failure to recognize the laws of cause and effect, or karma. The moment that we are in here is conditioned by the moment that preceded it. It's conditioned by our feelings, by the fact that we are missing the realization of impermanence and interconnection. We make decisions, and those decisions, whether they are thoughts or actions, condition the future. The present moment is conditioned by the law of karma. And I struggle with this to try to understand why is there negative karma? If at some point natural state is perfect, why is there negative karma? And I don't, of course, have a good answer to that. I don't have any answer, except that karma, like the alarm behind me reminding me that I actually should be logging into a work meeting, karma exists in the universe the same way that gravity does, the same way that electromagnetism does. Cause and effect. We live in a universe that unfolds according to our perception in a linear time. We live within that conditioned world, and karma is the mechanism by which conditions apply themselves. that make sense? That's my interpretation of the teaching from last night, and it comes because my conditioning right now, like I said, is very much trying to strip away complications from my practice and try to regain a sense of stability, a sense of focus, a sense of equanimity that I lost when I returned to work after an extended medical leave. During that medical leave, as part of my recuperation, I was able to meditate for hours a day. It was wonderful. And I felt for sure that I would be able to maintain that as I returned to work and as I picked back up the sometimes stressful obligations of my work. And I haven't really been able to. So my focus on these sutric practices of renunciation, my focus on the pose and the breath, and here on the basic understandings of ignorance and wisdom, is part of me trying to regain a really solid footing from which then to pick back up other practices, whether it's visualization or whether it's ultimately to let go of all of that and return to the specific Dzogchen practices. But I was finding that the Dzogchen practices were not accessible to me right now. I was too distracted. So there you go. If you have any questions, let me know. Drop a comment, drop an email. I'm always happy to field questions when I get them. I feel like the connection that I'm aspiring to with these videos really comes true. So keep your wits about you, and I will talk to you again soon.